So just to let you know that you're in the right place, and we'll get started in a couple of minutes. And while we wait for others to log in and join us, I will provide you with several updates from the King's Alumni Office about our international presence, mentoring, and new events that we're offering for you this year. So a bit on our international presence, we now have roughly 30% of King's alumni who are based outside of the UK. And that is why this year we did a big push to celebrate Dual Day internationally. I'm sure you're all familiar with Dual Day. Dual Day is the annual event commemorating the duel fought between the Duke of Wellington and the Earl of Winchelsea over the founding of King's College London. Our international alumni leaders hosted 25 events in cities across the world, and we have hundreds of alumni attending these events. And just to give you a bit of a taste, these events took place across the US and also took place in Nigeria, France, Thailand, Cyprus, and Colombia. So it was truly a global event and an event which was representative of the wide King's alumni network. And with that, I would also like to highlight that the events get hosted by local volunteers internationally across the year. So find out who your local volunteer is on the Alumni Community website or reach out to the Alumni Office if you'd like to hear more about supporting your local network. I would also like to encourage you to join our own unique platform called King's Connect. King's Connect is our online mentoring platform which allows you to connect with other alumni, so you can access it from anywhere and anytime, and also enables you to become a mentee or a mentor to King's alumni or students. At the moment, there are over 1,800 alumni on the platform, and this number keeps growing every day. You'll also get a link after this event with the access to the platform, so do make sure to grow your alumni network. And a lot of new events have started this year as well. One of those that I would like to highlight is the quarterly how-to series. Whether you want to learn how to get your dream job, negotiate a pay rise, or find out how to travel the world with your career, the how-to series have been designed to offer expert practical advice and also to give you useful tips that can be incorporated into your professional life. And lastly, before we get started, I would like to invite you to connect with us through our social media channels so you can keep up with the latest news and updates. And you can find all the different links on our alumni community website and also in the follow-up email after this event. Great. So hello everyone, and welcome to our first Alumni Speaker Series event, which will feature King's alumna Cynthia Salim. The aim of the Alumni Speaker Series is to feature King's alumni from various professions and to provide you with an insight and practical tips that can be incorporated into your professional life. My name is Johanna Kanda-Fischerova, and I'm the Alumni Engagement Manager here at the Alumni Office at King's College London. Thank you so much for joining us today. And just before we begin, I'm going to go over a couple of housekeeping rules. The session should last about 30 minutes, and you'll have a chance to go back and view the video on our YouTube channel after the event as well. The name of our YouTube channel is King's Alumni Office. On the right-hand side of the screen, there should be a questions panel. If you don't see this, please click on the Google Grid icon in the upper right-hand corner and select Questions. And here you can type in your questions throughout the session. Also, if you see a question that you would like to have answered, and someone has already typed it in, you can click the +1 icon. If you're not logged in through your Google account, you'll not be able to see these features. And I hope the session today is interactive, so please do ask your questions and we'll try to answer as many of them as possible. And now to the important part of the event. So our speaker today is Cynthia Salim, and she graduated from King's in 2010 with a master's degree in human values and contemporary ethics. Cynthia is the founder of Citizens Mark, a responsible brand of luxury women's professional wear, which is based in New York. Cynthia was raised in Los Angeles and Jakarta, and she came to King's College London as a Rotary Ambassadorial Scholar. Prior to launching Citizens Mark, Cynthia worked in policy advocacy and management consulting in Geneva, Switzerland. Cynthia is an active thought leader in the impact entrepreneurship space and is also a member of the King's College London Alumni Committee in New York. And with that, let's get started. So Cynthia, since the title of this event is Building a Socially Conscious Brand, would you want to tell us what a socially conscious brand is, and also what inspired you to start Citizens Mark?
Of course. So good morning, Joanna, and hi to everyone all over the world. Thanks for joining us. As Joanna mentioned, I'm a 2010 King's alum, and I will start there actually. So I did a master's in human values and contemporary global ethics as a Rotary Scholar, and that was the beginning of the very long journey to starting Citizen Smart. So in our human values and global ethics course, we talked a lot about corporate social responsibility, the role of companies in society, and from there I really got to thinking about how we can serve society from different sectors. So when I went to King's as a Rotary Scholar, I had been really active in the public sphere as an activist working in public policy, which also led me to Geneva, Switzerland, where the UN community and NGO community was very active. From there, when I was working in the UN in the marble floors of the beautiful building and headed over to McKinsey in management consulting, I found it really difficult to find blazers and really good professional wear for young women. So it was at that point that I thought, at some point, I might want to start a brand for working women on the rise that's socially responsible. So really starting at King's and studying human values and global ethics is what really opened me up to this possibility of doing impact work through the private sector. And of course, it gave me a broad network and access to the European culture and the supply chain that we eventually built throughout Europe.
That's great. That's great. So our corporate social responsibility is at the very core of it, but that on its own is not enough to inspire customers. So how do you approach that at CitizensMark?
Yeah, absolutely. So at CitizensMark, when we talk about social responsibility, it's about responsible sourcing, production, and branding. So we source our wool for our Italian wool blazers from a mill that purifies the water after the dyeing process, so it's not gray when it's put back out in the streams. Our blazers are produced in a specialized suit factory that laser cuts all of our blazers, and it's also 30% solar powered and pays living wages for its employees. And in our branding, we only use professional women to portray the CitizensMark woman. As you said, it's not enough to be socially responsible. So how do you stay competitive, right? I think I mentioned this in one of my top tips on Twitter. It's really by being better, right? Better product, better price, better quality is really the only way we can mainstream socially responsible business. I always tell people I started CitizensMark to solve a problem, and that problem was I can't find a good blazer that wasn't either too baggy or really sexy and fun to go to work in. So fundamentally, every day when I wake up, that's my first thought. How do we design a brand, and how do we create an aesthetic that projects credibility to really elevate the status of women in the workplace, this new lean-in generation that we have. And in everything that we do in our day-to-day operations, I think about, okay, how can we do this responsibly? How can we make decisions that affect people that are working in our supply chain and the planet in a positive way?
Mm-hmm. So what has been the big aspect, actually, of building your business?
Sorry, what's that?
So what has been the most challenging aspect of building your business?
Most challenging aspect? I would say two things. One is consistency, the day-to-day belief that it's really waking up every day and doing all the things you need to do, right? And secondly is raising mission-aligned capital. So there are a lot of different understandings of what a socially responsible business is. People will ask, are you planning to be profitable? Yes, we are a for-profit company. Our mission is to create high-quality, minimalist clothes for women on the rise. So getting investors to understand both that we are profit-driven and competitive and we're running like a high-performing business, and also that we have a commitment to social responsibility in our day-to-day operations is a bit of a conversation because there are different types of social impact companies, right? So some companies will use a business model to solve a social problem. That's great, but that's not what we do, right? And other companies are just regular profitable companies and they have a philanthropic arm or a foundation. That's also not what we do because we really look at our day-to-day operations and make sure that everything is socially responsible. So getting people on board who really understand that vision has taken a lot of conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I think a lot of people say, well, a socially conscious brand that comes with a high price tag. What is your response to that?
So I would say that's actually not true. I understand how people might think that socially responsible goods and food might be more expensive from your day-to-day experience. But think about two things. Like, when you buy a $2 t-shirt, do you really believe that's how much it costs for somebody to live well, creating that really, really cheap t-shirt? So one of the answers is we're actually not paying the true cost of things, of the clothes we wear sometimes. Secondly, there are plenty of companies who are selling you either an underpriced t-shirt or an overpriced t-shirt at $2 or $200 that may not have a socially responsible supply chain, yet the company is very profitable and its executives are making millions of dollars. So to say that socially responsible goods are too expensive is really not a thing. It's really about getting the business community to clean up their operations and to really, as consumers, demand to those companies, like, okay, we want affordable things, but at what cost, right? What is the true cost of having a garment that does not put somebody else in poverty?
Mm-hmm. I think we have actually a question coming in from Ben, and he's asking, have you ever considered branching out into other areas of fashion, such as male or infants clothing? And do you feel that will detract from your original business idea?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. I think one of the questions from Johanna was, what are you going to need in order to succeed in the future, right? And one of the things is diversification. There's a couple reasons for that. So even within our brand, because we're a brand that is for women on the rise, and because we're a brand that creates timeless classic clothes that you don't toss 2 months from now, we won't have as much turnover, right? We can't. How many black blazers can we get you to buy if we make it really well and it's a classic piece? Because we don't want more fabric in the landfills because we made it in a crazy color that was only good for the season. So we have to diversify, even within our sector, right? So you come to us for a blazer, you'll need to come for us for your pencil skirt. You'll eventually come to us for your blouse, for your sweater, so that as a business, we're still looking at things like AOV, average order value, lifetime value of the customer, basic business skills. So one is diversification. We need to do that within our own vertical now. Secondly, on Ben's question of expanding into menswear, and would that be a detraction from our mission? I think we want to stabilize our women's brand first, because that's something that's really missing from the cultural conversation. Like when I went shopping, I looked around and said, okay, there are brands for cool girls and there are brands for smart girls. But where's the brand for cool, smart women? Right? So I'm really committed to building Citizen Smart as this brand for cool, smart women. Because cool, smart women exist and they're awesome and they need to be celebrated in all areas of pop culture. That said, I've been really surprised by how brand loyal people are, even to a new brand like Citizen Smart. So they'd come to us and say, oh, I want to buy everything from you because I also believe in your mission. Oh wait, let me turn on my light. I also believe in your mission, so can you give me a sweater and a bag and a shoe? And we also have men saying, like, I also want a socially responsibly made blazer or suit. So I think that is a possibility that we expand down the line, but we definitely want to solidify what we came to do in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I guess that kind of answered, where do you kind of see yourself going in the future, essentially, and kind of sustain that success. So, I guess with that also, the other question would be, what is your advice for someone who's used to kind of what you would call fast fashion lifestyle and wants to start making kind of those more conscious, ethical fashion choices? What would be your advice for them?
Yeah, two thoughts. So first, get used to timeless, sophisticated clothing. It's actually something I've discovered and come to love from living in Europe, which I think has less of a fast fashion culture than the US. And when I interact with our customers of Citizen Smart here in the US, they're always stunned when they put on this gray blazer and they think, oh, I can style this in so many ways. I can wear denim, I can be formal and make it a suit, I can be in the middle, and it's something that I think you come to really appreciate when you realize the quality of something that's made to last. So one, that's really important. And secondly, be a noisy customer, right? So this April 24th is actually Fashion Revolution Day, and customers are taking to Twitter and asking brands they love, who made my clothes? That kind of stuff becomes data. That's the kind of information where their social media manager will hand it to the C-level executive and say, this year 20,000 people tweeted us and said, who made my clothes? This is important.
Yeah, that's great. Is there any kind of tips you would have that you can start making like right off the bat, you know, when you want to go clothes shopping? Should you avoid certain things, or what are kind of some quick wins, I guess?
Some quick wins are, if you actually look online, there are a few platforms that sell ethical fashion. So Citizen Smart is on modavanti.com, and you can find everything on there, from you know, a vegan leather bag to socially responsibly made anything, t-shirts, pants, this and that. And then the other quick win is, if you can't find anything in these specifically ethical fashion websites, is buy things to last, right? We don't have enough physical resources to continue our level of consumption. So when you look at a t-shirt or a sweater or a blazer, ask yourself, how many times am I going to wear this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are really good. I see we have more actually questions coming in live. So we're going to take one from Elena, and she's asking, Cynthia, was it hard to really put your brand out there on the market to make it popular and successful? And then there's the second part of the question, and that is, can you tell us a bit more about your story on the rough path to success?
Yeah, so was it hard to put our brand out there? It actually wasn't, because of the timeliness of women on the rise in ethical fashion. So, you know, as you know, we're the lean-in generation. We're rising millennials. And ethical fashion is having its moment in the sun, and hopefully it's not a trend that's going. It's here to stay. Socially responsible business is important. So very early on, we were in Forbes, we were in Bloomberg Business Week, we were in Entrepreneur Magazine. That said, distribution is another thing. So getting wholesale partners is something we're working on, and also regional aesthetics. So we're heading to Europe very soon, so that's really exciting for us, and really looking for distribution partners. And we're nailing the European aesthetic versus the American aesthetic. So I mean, just one quick example, in Europe, buyers told us, I need a matching pant, right? It's a suit, of course I need a matching pant. Whereas in the US, people said, oh, I can see this with a coordinating pant, but not matching. So, you know, getting the word out has not been difficult. It's building a profitable business that's going to be the bulk of our work over the next 2 years. The rough path to success. I'm still on it, and it actually took over 2.5 years to build the Citizen Smart supply chain. So it was 2.5 years to launch, and it was flying into Italy and driving into small towns, meeting historic wool mills that supply luxury brands and saying, hi, I'm Cynthia, I'm starting a socially responsible brand, and hearing them say, okay, are you going to put in a 10,000 meter order? And saying, no, is 100 meters okay? And really, at every step of the way, developing this this perspective that we're small, but we're poised for growth. And that's something that is that requires a lot of commitment, day in and day out. It's 2.5 years of suppliers falling through, of samples that you made in LA that didn't work out. And it's really about pushing through day to day.
So I see we have a couple more questions actually here from our audience. So one coming in from May is, how do you tackle difficulties? And can you give examples? What will you do if you're facing difficulties in business or life?
Yeah, so we talked about this in our Twitter top tips, right? One of my mottos is that every day is a crisis, right? I just had this epiphany one day as I was walking down the street in New York. It's raining. I have fabric on my arm. I can't hail a cab. And I just put my arms out and said, you know what? everybody has a crisis. Just get used to it. I think when you're prepared for it and you've made that commitment to push through, you know that you can get through every challenge.
Yeah, that's good. We did also have, Cynthia, some questions that were submitted earlier through our SurveyMonkey. So I think we're going to take one of those now. So the first one that came in was, what advice would you give to young females starting up in their careers in any field, essentially? And did you face a lot of challenges because of your gender?
Yeah, I love this question because it's so relevant. My one piece of advice would be jump and figure it out as you go, right? So some of you may have heard the statistic about how women wait until they can meet 100% of their requirements to apply for a job. When I am asked to do something that I am not prepared to do, or even when I ask myself to do that, like start a clothing brand with no experience in the field, you figure it out as you go along. I think it's really important to be there and ask those questions, right? When you are with a supplier or somebody in a field that you want to get into and you don't understand the words that they're saying, ask them. And there's so many things I could say about being a woman entrepreneur. You know, one of the things is credibility, right? People are not used to seeing young female entrepreneurs. So when they meet me, they usually say, oh, are you the designer? Who do you design for? And I'll say, I'm the owner of the brand. So it's really building that rapport and being able to build relationships with people across gender and age range and socioeconomic space. That's really important. How do I sit here and make you, the supplier, trust me as a business owner? How do I have you as an investor trust that I'm going to build a strong, profitable business? So I think as a young woman, we often don't want to step out there unless we think we're ready. And the bad news and good news is that you don't become ready unless you do it.
Yeah. So I guess I'm hearing you say something about kind of taking more risks and just being brave and getting out there, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So another question that we have from Nancy is, how difficult was it to transition from a traditional corporate role, where you were before, to working for yourself? And did you come across any opposition from family or friends?
Yeah, it wasn't too difficult for me to transition from the corporate world to entrepreneurship, partly because I had only been working for 3 years at that point. I was 25 when I started building Citizen Smart. Yeah. We launched when I was 27, so it took a big chunk of my 20s. Did I face opposition from close friends and family members? All the time, still do. That's where a sheer belief in yourself and your mission really matters. I mean, almost in every step of the way when I've done something, like going to King's to study human values, like contemporary global ethics, people were like, what are you going to do? Are you going to be a philosopher in an armchair? And even though I didn't know specifically what I was going to do, I knew this was the right program for me. And I knew that I was going to learn a lot and it was going to set me up for the future. So, yeah, you will face opposition all the time. And it's really about building your confidence and saying, I'm going to make this happen, right? When you start to show progress, that's when people say, okay, fine, I'll help you. You start to show more progress, and then people go, that's my Cynthia, right? It's kind of the unfortunate challenge of building something, that when you're on top of the mountain, everybody applauds, right? But when you're crawling up, like, there are very few people that are going to push you up.
Yeah. So I guess that's a lot about like confidence and kind of believing in yourself.
Yeah.
That's really good. And so another question that's coming in from Nino is, if you didn't advertise your brand as a socially responsible brand, do you think it would be as successful as it is now? And how much weight do you think social responsible label carries today?
Okay, I'll be totally honest. Nobody buys a Citizen Smart blazer because it's socially responsible. That's the reality. It's $450. You buy it because it's very good. You can't find anything else in the market because it's priced competitively, because it makes you feel credible. It makes you feel on the outside who you are on the inside. And that's part of building a socially responsible business. Unless it's a $2 cookie, no one's going to buy it because of that reason. That said, the social responsibility aspect, what that does is amplify the brand. Because on top of wearing it, now when somebody tells them, oh, I like your blazer, they'll say, oh, it's Citizen Smart, and it's socially responsible. People enjoy talking about it. So I think it's been a great press point. But I think if you're doing a product that's anything beyond an impulse product or a really quick buy, it's got to be product first.
Do you think that kind of, I guess now social responsible is kind of, I don't want to use the word cool, but it's something people are talking about. Do you think that's going to be something that's going to kind of carry on for the next couple of years, or do you kind of have a sense of where that might go? Or?
Yes. I'm a huge believer in millennials in my generation. I think as we start to really rise in the workforce, we will start to take away a lot of the greenwashing and corporate responsibility PR and actually try to make things better. So it is certainly here to stay.
Mm-hmm. And we have another question from Tristan, and they're saying they're just really enjoying the talk, which is good to know. And could you talk a little bit more about how you began to communicate and market Citizens Mark, and the aspects that went well, and anything that you would consider maybe was a little bit of a waste of time?
Yeah, I'm a huge branding nerd. I wrote a 6-page single-spaced brand brief about who the Citizen Smart woman is, how the Citizen Smart brand feels. So, for example, I say the Citizen Smart woman is this woman who's slightly intimidating but socially savvy enough to make you feel comfortable. And people instantly understand who that is. Everyone knows that person in their life. And as part of this brand brief, I wrote about, this was like an entire page of like, if we were a car, we would be a Tesla because we're socially responsible but sleek and cool and expensive. We're not like Mercedes-Benz, BMW old world, but we're also not Prius, a Toyota Prius, because we're not that green hippie. If we were a cup, we wouldn't be Grandpa's heavy mug or that plastic cup that gets knocked off the table. We'd be a steady enough cup on the table, right? And all of these things, I eventually found a branding firm to translate for us into like a logo, into like a color swatch. And all of this I had to communicate with the photographer and the model, who's actually my friend and a real professional. She's a tech project manager. I wouldn't say any minute spent on branding is wasted. Even if you look at our Instagram at Citizen Smart, there's a consistent feel to it. I would like it to be even more consistent and more elevated as we go forward and have the ability to create a ton of content. But every piece of vocabulary used, every image, that is well thought through.
And so another question that just came through is, when you're starting your own business, what is the best way to use your motivation to make it work? And is it good to start from the social media and then kind of grow up, or would you start somewhere else?
It depends on what kind of brand you want to build. So my friends and family are actually very supportive in general. It's the day-to-day struggles, right? So in terms of getting motivation, I have a small group of people who are mission aligned, who I'm always talking to gain inspiration from. And I also meet with my target market all the time. Like, nothing is more inspiring to me than hearing women say, "Oh my gosh, I know, it's so hard to find a good blazer. Yours is the only one I wear," right? So it's really connecting with that need and that niche, because the world is so big. There's so much room for the craziest things. You see things in the market that sell well because there's a community interested in it. So if your people are on social, great. Some of our women are on social, but many of them are really busy. So like an executive is not necessarily on Instagram all the time. So find your people.
Yeah, that's good. Do you think some of the motivation could be perhaps, I guess, diminished by kind of looking at your competitors? Is that something you would encourage others to do? I mean, I think it's healthy to kind of know kind of your competition, but do you think that could be demotivating in a sense?
Yes, I really limit the amount of time I spend looking at competitors. I look at it and see what they're doing well, what they're not doing well, and then I close the tab because, like I said, there's so much room for everyone. And I wonder if this is something that men think about less, because I wonder if when women see competition, they say, oh, there's a crowded space, whereas when men or more competitive people see competition, they say, all right, out of the way, I'm gonna be up front. So yeah, there's a space for you, right? Like, find your interesting voice and do things differently, and you don't have to copy what everybody else is doing, even if they're the industry best.
That's good. Kind of goes along, kind of, what you were saying earlier, kind of being motivated and using that to kind of fuel your self, essentially, in the business world. So I guess transitioning a bit from Citizens Mark, we did have some questions earlier about, how did you kind of go about getting your first job, actually? How did you do that?
Yeah, first jobs are hard. My first job after King was at an NGO that I loved in Geneva, Switzerland. And I actually got it from a cold email. I cold emailed so many people at the UN and said, here's who I am. I'm looking for this kind of role. Can I help you? And one of 500 emails responded and CC'd somebody and said, oh, John here at ICMC is looking for a policy associate. And I got the job description, and it was me, right? This is totally the role for me. And that really takes initiative, right? I think, especially if you're a good student and you've been a good student your whole life, you can be constrained by rules, right? Oh, but there isn't an open position. Oh, but I don't qualify for it. They were looking for 5 years of experience. I have 1. But it's really just about making your presence known and being top of mind that's going to help you get those positions. And when you're in there, too, that's not where it ends after first job, right? Credibility is really important. Making that growing up transition from school to being an adult. I mean, that's what inspired me to start Citizens Mark, because I went to work and I looked down at myself and said, I look like an intern. How do I not look like an intern? So it's both in, how you sound, the content of your speech, and what you look like. All of that needs to convey this level of professionalism and the person that you want to be.
Mm-hmm. I think we do have actually 2 more questions that came in, so I think we're going to take time quickly. I know we're sort of running out of time, but I think we're going to take those 2 questions. So the first one was, how do you build up your team, and how do you handle some of the conflicts that might arise between your coworkers?
Yeah, so I searched for my team. Our marketing manager is a superstar, and I found her on Twitter because she did a pitch for another brand that I thought was really good. And I asked her to join us. We're bringing on somebody to do sales who, also has a track record of doing amazing things. And another thing you should also remember is it's not just about your paid full-time staff, right? So this month we're actually launching Friends of Citizens Mark, because every time I meet with people, they'll say, how can I help you move Citizens Mark forward? You need mission-aligned investors? Okay, let me make some introductions. You need $5,000 checks? Let me see how we can make that happen. And it's your community of friends who are who have the same vision, and it's your target market. We're heading to Europe this summer to look at which markets we want to be in first. And if you look at our homepage on citizensmark.com, there's a call to action. It says, we're heading to Europe. Let us know how you want to help. You want to host a focus group with Women on the Rise? Great, we'll be there. We'll bring some perks, right? So it's really about mobilizing, right? Mobilizing the community. Like, people don't think that they can help unless you tell them. Like, you can help us. You can bring 5 of your friends and we can talk about what you like to wear. You can tell me where you go shopping in Munich so that I can go to that store and see if they'll carry Citizens Mark. So there's that element of building a team. And what's the second question? So we're not there yet, thankfully. We'll get there. I think there's a second part too.
Yeah. I think this was it. Yeah. And then, so the other, I think, and the last question we'll be taking today is, do you wear other brands yourself? And the answer is yes, which you said yes. Does that help identify a room for improvement in your own brand?
Oh, totally. Oh my gosh. So I have to wear other brands, otherwise I'd be naked. And it totally helps identify room for improvement. Even in looking for a blouse, right? I love this blouse, but the back is extra long and flares out because it's high fashion kind of stuff. And you know, that always reminds me why I started Citizen Smart. Like, why is it so difficult to just find a white silk blouse that can go under a blazer that tucks in and stays tucked in? And you know, all of these things about women's professional wear, right? I used to walk down the UN hallway, the hallways in the UN, and my heels would clink. It was terrible. You would know when a woman was walking down that hallway. And it's little things like this that make you feel out of place. So yes, I do buy other brands, and it's a constant reminder to me that, you know, the area of women's professional wear is ripe for change and innovation, and that there's a lot of room. Like, I never fear competitors because how many women exist and how many of them work? So yeah, absolutely.
And I guess a little fun question at the end. What has been the best memory of King's or at King's did you have?
So other than running around the Strand, my favorite memory of King's is actually post-King. So I'm really involved in the alumni community here. And I encourage all of you listening to get involved in your alumni communities. And it's been so nice. I mean, there are people who have graduated anywhere from 2014 to the 70s and 80s. And it's so great to connect with a community of people who support each other, especially in this concrete jungle that is New York.
Yeah, well, we're definitely happy to hear that, so that's great. Well, thank you so much, Cynthia. I think this talk has been so insightful, kind of about, the industry in general, and also about Citizen Smart and the work that you do. So, again, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me, and thanks for tuning in, everyone.
Yeah, and for our audience, thank you so much for joining us for the first Google Hangout on air and for participating in the discussion. The video will be available for you to view on the King's Alumni Office YouTube channel, and a link will be sent to you later on today. And if you would like to submit any feedback, please send us an email at alumnievents@kcl.ac.uk. And we look forward to seeing you at our next event. And from both Cynthia and I, have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you soon.